Greetings, Sanbonani, Dumelangi, Absheni, hello out there once again. It's your boy Akay and the team back again with another episode of The Real Talk with Akay. And we are still on the path of seeking practical solutions for practical societal issues. And while we are still on it, please don't forget to click that subscribe button as we are about to kick off the episode with our topic for the day. But before I actually introduce the topic for the day, let me just give my co-host the platform to say hi to, because this is actually our second episode of the season, right, guys? So the platform is yours.
He says I just had to look at my side. Hi everyone. As you all know, Mufei is here along with the rest of the group. So, thanks for actually tuning in and subscribing. And for those who are actually starting with watching Real Talk with Akay, please don't forget to like and subscribe and just listen, comment, share what you think about the daily topics that we have. And by us actually reading your comments, we actually learn a lot from you than us just actually sharing our views amongst each other, because we are not all knowing. So yeah.
So Mrs.
Yes.
The platform is yours.
Hi guys, it's still me, Tisletso, and I'm so excited to be here. Today's topic is a lot, and I hope we get to break down most, and we try to get solutions at least open a dialogue for everyone to comment and really have, share our views.
Yeah. And you can do so on our social media platforms. It's at the People's Podcast. You can send us an email there at thepeoplespodcast@gmail.com with your views and whatever. And you might stand a chance of appearing as a guest on our platforms. And you can also take the Twitter streets, Facebook streets, and just share your views using the hashtag Real Talk with Akay or hashtag the People's Podcast. And then we'll gladly respond to any questions that you have or critique that you might be putting. Because after all, they say critics do make a show here. That's how we grow as a show. But apart from that, today we'll actually be talking about a sensitive topic in our communities. And this is more like a pandemic in black communities in a way. And that's teenage pregnancy, guys. Yeah. We have a problem of teenage pregnancy in our communities, hey. Like day in, day out. Like ever since we've been growing up, it's something that we've been witnessing. And instead of it decreasing, I meant to say, the rate just keeps on going up. It's more like we are not doing enough to actually educate these young ones about these issues, because that's why at the moment we actually have like a parent that's around 19 years.
Yeah.
You find like a parent still at high school, the mother still at high school, the child at crash. Everybody is a learner inside that house. I'm sorry to say, but that's the reality in most cases. So, on this episode, we'll actually be diving in much deeper to these things, trying to actually take a look at what could be the cause for these things to occur in our communities and how we can actually address them, So without wasting any further time, let me just open up the show by just finding out from my co-hosts, what they think could actually be the cause of this high rate of teenage pregnancy, especially in black communities, because that's where it's actually happening. So since pregnancy really affect women, I'm gonna start with you, this on this one. You're gonna open it up for us,
I think that's also part of the problem, that it's only viewed as it affects only the women, and that's why we have a lot of single black mothers out there as well. Honestly, I think there are many reasons that, teenage pregnancy reaches an all-time high almost every year. It's such, I don't know, I feel like it's such a sensitive topic, and the dialogue itself is so challenging, and it's a lot. I don't know how I could try and have this conversation and not step on anyone's toes, but I would say that conversations within the black household needs to change. They need to shift. But I feel also as well with, fortunately, unfortunately, with the more young parents we have, the more educated they are, and the approach is different with the parenting as opposed to our parents, which, you know, the conversation was just, there wasn't a conversation entirely. And I think if we really take a look at what affects a person's behavior, what affects a child's behavior, then maybe we could get to the root of the problem. What's your take, sir?
Well, I can't say, I don't know, like, as you guys were labeling this conversation as a very sensitive topic,
Yeah.
for me, I don't know, should I beg to differ? It's not sensitive primarily because teenage pregnancy is now popping in, it's now a trend, and it's something that has been happening. I mean, I remember one time when, I think it was before COVID hit, I think around 2016, 17 or something like that, where there were two girls that were trending on, I think, Facebook or something like that, where they were both, basically they were teenagers, and they both got kids and all that, and then they were bragging, holding their SASA cards in their hands. And
in most cases, that's why, like, this is where it actually started, this trend.
I think that's also the problem.
Grand money.
Yeah, that's also a huge problem. Like, how do you give someone a reward?
Yes, but that's the thing. I as much as we can say it is a problem, it was a solution to some people.
Poverty.
I don't know. Hear me out, man. Remember, we were still fresh off apartheid and all these things, right? And shortly after the term of Nelson Mandela, President Thabo Mbeki actually came in with these initiatives of grants and all these things, social grants and so on and so forth. This was the first step in actually restoring the balances that were lost between white and black in terms of races. So parents and families had to depend on the man actually working 80% of the time. But single parenting was also taken into consideration and all these things where the woman had to become the breadwinner and so on and so forth. And as a result, these kids had to be given somewhat of a head start in terms of these social grants and all these things. But as time went on, they were no longer used as something that was more focused on the kids. It was now something that became focused on the parents actually using these things as a way of somewhat, I don't know, I can't say,
social lifestyles. It's simple.
I can't say enriching themselves because of the money that you get, social grant, it's not even something that you can classify as enriching yourself. But it is something.
Even the concept itself.
Exactly. So the main protagonists was time. It was time, communication and time, because now social media started popping in, cell phones were starting to pop in and all these things, and there was a certain lifestyle that you had to sustain, but at the expense of your child. Instead of your child actually acquiring certain things that they needed, now your child was actually just another ticket for you to sustain certain things up to a certain age where this child was at. So teenage pregnancy, it's a very, I don't know, I can't classify it as sensitive, because the more we start classifying it as sensitive, there are certain things that we are endorsing along the way. But that's just my opinion on the matter.
And this podcast actually exists to break such barriers, because we are all about talking about such topics, whether it's sensitive or not sensitive. Because we are actually talking about issues that people are not willing to talk about in street corners. These topics are considered to be boring, For instance, I personally believe that when it comes to teenage pregnancy, the main contributing factor, this is more like a good initiative and what they are trying to do. But them actually trying to make us more aware about sex at an early stage, like sex education at an early stage, I feel like that's where the problem lies. Because in a way, you are sparking curiosity inside my mind. Just imagine OLO, for instance, if they never taught us about these things as sex, condoms and everything. It would have at least taken us maybe a little bit more of years to actually start experimenting with sex. But because they introduce these things, automatically your mind starts being curious. No, I need to start doing this. I feel like that's where it starts.
I think the modern way really came with a lot of gaps in it that they didn't anticipate. I remember my sister told me about a book. The author is who's this? Maponga. Dr.
Yeah,
Maponga.
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And there's a part where he says what society is literally how barbaric or how, disorganized, how everything is a reflection of the world that, the oppressor was trying to build. We are a product of what they were trying to. We're actually a product of what
they did achieve what.
Exactly. And you can't control it now because, it has happened. But I do think that in schools as well, it is such a problem. When you tell someone who comes from abroad that there's such a thing as a life orientation in high school, it's shocking. Because they don't teach you about life. I mean, life is very broad. They don't teach you about life, but they say it's life orientation. And we had that situation, and Raymond, I will name call this school, obviously. Raymond Mhlabat and Tepisong, and they were talking about kids being very sexually active. And they started saying that they wanted to give out condoms to kids that were 15. And my sister fought that notion, was like, no.
Yeah.
No, that shouldn't. Yeah, exactly. If you say to a 16-year-old, here are condoms, this is how they work.
You're
what am I going
curiosity
to do?
automatically.
Exactly. I need to use.
How does it work?
Yeah, like how does
the first question is how does it work?
You tell me, or even if you don't tell
it's
me,
more like
Google
now,
is gonna tell me. You've already sparked the interest.
What
like
you're talking
saying.
about? There was this thing. I think they announced it last year, if I'm not mistaken, that they wanted to actually start making these lessons.
Yes.
There's actually textbooks that actually
show
vaginas like this is like the parent kissing. Here they are making love. I started asking myself like questions. I'm like, this is not a solution.
No.
This is more like contributing to the problem.
And beyond that, they even wanted to teach them about sexuality.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of, people knowing and understanding who they are, of course, but you need to give me a chance to establish that for myself. That is why we have authentic people in this world. I will say an authentic person that I love is Erykah Badu as an artist. She's very authentic and untainted by anyone. And we need to give kids that opportunity to do that for themselves. So now, when they wanted to implement sexuality education into school where they teach a child what being gay is, what being bi is, what being lesbian is.
You're sparking curiosity.
Exactly, and
That's
at that
thing.
age, you can be influenced.
That time,
so
a kid
much.
does not even know like what's a gay, what's a lesbian.
Exactly.
You should actually let them discover those things. As soon as they start sparking those things, like growing up, there's this thing like a kid maybe might feel like excluded from certain activities. And then they might classify themselves like, okay, it means maybe I'm gay or something.
Yeah.
Because already they have instilled that thing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Personally, I feel as though even households in general, they took such a step back that they were like, if there's anything and everything that we are supposed to teach our kids, they'll get it in school.
Yeah.
Why does life orientation exist? It exists primarily because parents are not educating their kids on a moral standpoint alone. I personally feel as though the existence of life orientation was to fill in those moral and ethical gaps that households ever have. For an example, if there is should I say an abusive father?
Yeah.
If there's an abusive father within the household, and then the child is somewhat taught that a man should never hit a woman. And so they were trying to fill in these gaps that domestically already existed within a household. Now, in retrospect, it becomes a problem primarily because when you're trying to fill in those gaps, curiosity starts to kick in, right? Substituting a subject for a parent is an indicator that something's not right within our society, and ultimately resulting in how far do we go in terms of moral ethics, teachings, and understanding in a domestic environment in general. For example, if we all start asking the question, what time did you start drinking? that alone becomes a very, very interesting conversation.
Exactly. Because these things, like, we used to see them booking textbooks. like alcohol. This is what it does. This is what it does.
Right. I want to just address your point about substituting parents for,
The subject, yes.
or a teacher, and morals and values not being taught at home and expecting the kids to learn that from school. I will argue that specifically because a person, you see, I feel like the one thing that is really crucial and that really, that is counterproductive for young people or people in general is that you're still young. That's the problem. You're not still young. You're a person, you're a human being. Once you can tell wrong from right, or if you can understand. So my problem is, I'll make an example with my mom.
Okay.
She was less than 16 years old. She grew up with a lot of her siblings, alcoholics around the household,
Right.
Her mom was drinking, her dad was drinking. And when she made the decision to not entertain alcohol in her life, she wasn't even 16, she wasn't even 15. But she saw what alcohol was doing to people, and she made the decision to not drink alcohol at that very young age. And you cannot say, my mom learned that from school, because unfortunately for my mom, she didn't get the opportunity
Life
to go to
teaches
school.
you. That's the thing. Life,
But it doesn't, because if it did, then teenage pregnancy wouldn't be at an all-time high. I think it's also a person's decision to really say, do I want to partake in this or do I not want to? Because here's the thing, you can only teach a person so much. But if they're not willing to implement something, then that becomes a problem.
Don't forget, there's also an issue of peer pressure.
Yes.
Also.
But it's being taught.
That's the point that I'm trying to make, because let's look at it. Let's look at it this way.
During our times, for instance, once I had sex, like Kashapa made, what will happen?
It's a celebration.
It's a celebration. I will start teasing.
And that's the problem.
Niggas like, ole virgin. That's
That's
social pressure.
That's the root.
A lot of people actually lost their virginities because of
that, and that's the root.
the social pressure.
You can't have your own decision, and that's a problem that you have to tackle. Why am I allowing someone else to tell me what's important to me, what I have to prioritize? Someone your age not having a child in society is like, you can't have kids. But that shouldn't influence you to suddenly now want to go and have a child, because at the end of the day, it's going to be your responsibility. It's someone's opinion, but it's going to be a lifelong commitment for you. And it's so important for people to...
The things we know right now about peer pressure,
Yeah.
you didn't know.
Me. Yeah.
Majority of us here.
Yeah.
We were easily influenced growing up. It was simple to start a lot of stuff. We started drinking because of influence in most cases. There's a friend doing this, and then it pulls through like, okay, have a sip, taste.
Yeah.
We're there like...
But here's I think we need to start asking the bigger question here, which is, where do all these immoral and unethical acts begin?
It's not from the household.
I beg to differ, and I want you to hear me out.
Okay.
80% of the time when you're a child, anything and everything that you see done by a grown-up is
imitate.
correct, primarily because it is endorsed by society. Now, because it is endorsed by society, right?
All right.
That means if I'm a boy child and I see a grown-ass man slapping a woman, that means if I start dating, I can also do that, because that means umfazi uyashawa is basically being disciplined.
Yeah.
Now, let me paint this imaginary. Let me paint this imaginary picture. If, let's say, all our parents had this moral concept that I'm not going to drink in front of my kids, I'm not going to drink in front of my kids, I'm not going to drink in front of my kids. When you're craving something to drink, then you're like, okay, what can I do? Akani is currently at home, he's not doing anything. How about I actually take my kids and they go and have a sleepover at Akani's place, and then Ranzo will probably take care of them, and then Akani can come over, and then we can all chill as grown-ups and drink. Therefore, my kids will not see the impact of what drinking alone has on me. As much as they may be curious,
Not the problem.
here's the point that I'm trying to make. As much as I'm not trying to make this imaginary world where these kids will not see should I say, the weaknesses of what alcohol can do to a grown-up and so on and so forth, it applies in the same way. As much as they may be curious, but for as long as my child has not seen me do something in front of their eyes, that means if they may intend to do something, then I practically use a manipulation tactic, which is, have you ever seen me drink?
Exactly.
Even though I drink, have you ever seen me drink?
No.
No. So why are you all of a sudden having these notions and ideas that you have the eligibility and right to drink? So in doing so, you're basically putting your child at a proper course so that when they're old enough and responsible enough, whenever they do start implementing these things, it's in a responsible manner. Instead of it saying, it wasn't me, it was alcohol, and alcohol is taking over in certain things. So I guess it becomes a question of what are grown-ups allowing kids to classify as socially endorsed activities?
You know, some of these things I also feel like, okay, the media also has a hand from like an early age growing up. You know, the movie, we grew up watching action movies, Jean-Claude Van Damme, all these different kinds of movies. Even though it's worse because like there's no longer even like that subtlety amongst like those sex scenes go to TV like how Shebel and Jebo Generation, however, like explicitly just watching. So even for us, those things I think started there. You know, watching Bo Generation, Oshebile Kana was this chick Sharon, Lebo Samuel Neda, Bashapana Kamala, Shabakukana, those kitchen sex and everything. Those things spark curiosity, like okay, and then the parent will be like Zwalame. Automatically you're telling me it's wrong. And as a kid, once you start being like it's wrong
without explaining
and without telling me why it's wrong, automatically I'll want to do that thing because I want to know, okay, why is it wrong? There's something fun or nice about this thing. Let me just go in, you see. So also, media, it's a problem. And right now it's actually worse because we're born a movie like 50 Shades of Grey. And
even books.
Yeah, even books.
But 50 Shades of Grey doesn't come out and say have a 7-year-old watching.
That's the thing, but they do have access to these things. Especially this generation.
Like
2K. Let's just take a look at what's happening with this generation, Yama 2000. You see, like earlier on when I was busy with the intro, I mentioned something about having like parents and the child going to school and everything. That's happening in 2000.
But even 90s and 80s. I mean, think about
that's why it started.
There was a time before then where you would put the volume of the TV on mute,
Mandingo,
and there
12.
was this program that was playing on 12, and you would
go TV.
Or in the bed. But whenever you hear something like from the bedrooms,
I think that resulted from the point I made earlier on of these things we're learning from schools. Like, okay, sex is there and everything. That's when the curiosity started, like, I want to know what's happening. So, in a way, when we were watching those things, you were doing research. After doing research, what do you want to do? Usually, put it into practical use.
But isn't it insane how the brain is suddenly selective when it comes to those things? Like, suddenly, you want to practice what you saw on TV. If you saw people kissing, that's the only thing that you want to practice. Suddenly, right? And suddenly you want to practice drinking alcohol. But when you saw your dad reading the Bible, you're like, whatever, vibes, whatever. Why doesn't your brain allow you? That's what I'm saying.
You know what? The Bible, they set me down. They explain what happened.
Okay.
They explain.
So
and then I was like, this is boring. So that's why they're like, okay, close. You know, in most cases, they're like, okay, they don't even want to touch. Like earlier on, when we were busy setting up, we were talking about these things of sex talks with our parents. How hard it is for black guys to actually sit down with their dads and be like, yo, dad, I need advice on this thing. I'm actually, maybe, for instance, let me just say he has an STI. You can't just sit down with this pops and be like, yo, pops, yo, I fucked up, I messed up. Yo, can I let the rope? It's gonna be somehow. And I think maybe even the real talkers out there do relate to what I'm talking. Because majority of black males out there, like, it's hard for us to have those convos. Sometimes what they do, they'll just leave condoms on top of the bed. And that's it. That's the talk.
But that's the thing. I don't know. I'm gonna sound so evil.
Sound evil.
That it's not even funny.
Okay.
The devil's advocate.
Yes, he said
today,
it. He said it.
I remember once having this conversation, and again, we're going back to the ex conversation that we had just before we started shooting. So there was this one time where this ex that I was referring to actually got a second child. We established communication and started talking to me and all these things and saying that my mom is actually hanging out all my dirty laundry for everyone to hear and understand over the fact that I have 2 kids. And I said, have you ever taken a moment to just take a step back and think about your mom's position at this point in time? Because the question becomes, does she currently have those insecurities of, have I failed as a mother for my daughter to have 2 kids and not to work, and does not even have a proper academic qualification that may put her in a proper position to actually start?
Black parents.
You understand what I mean?
That's
Black
exactly
mothers.
what I wanted to say. See, that's the problem. Okay, we live in an information age right now.
The
where-
Internet of Things.
Yes, so we understand a lot of things now. We've established, reasons, change in behavior, why people change in behavior.
Right.
Maybe why parents, why black parents or black fathers feel so uncomfortable having sex talks with their kids, and. And once you understand why a person would behave that way, wouldn't you want to be kinder to the part of them that is actually fragile and is unable to open up that? Wouldn't you rather force someone to feel uncomfortable until they are comfortable with having a certain conversation? Because if you learn something, right, if you learn that the only way to tackle an issue is if you sit down, you have that conversation, would you rather not have that type of approach as well with your parent? And if so, then why not? Because I found that in my life, in order for me to have an understanding, almost every conversation is uncomfortable, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But if you try and tackle it any way that you can, even if you tackle it, maybe for a whole week, it doesn't have to be all at once.
So, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
When did you actually start having these unsettling conversations with them?
Me.
Yeah. How old were you?
Okay, firstly, the first uncomfortable conversation that I had with my mom, I think I was 12 or 13.
And
I
think that had to do lady period pains, honey.
No, actually, my period came very late. Very late. I think I was in grade 11.
Because, usually, it also depends on the age. For instance, for us as guys, usually we start engaging on such topics around... Yeah.
The stages of puberty.
I want stages of puberty. Yeah. That's even luck. Usually, I want to 19, 20 there. That's when we start being comfortable with start asking serious, hitting questions. And usually it's already late. I'm already having sex. I already know a lot of stuff. I even know things they don't even know I know.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Download Kama Sutra because it's now downloadable and everything.
In PDF format. It's a book.
It's a book. It's a book practically talking about all these things.
Sex life. Yeah. How to spice up the sex life.
Right. So if a parent comes to you and gives you a packet of condoms and leaves them on your bed and looks at them, what do you do?
Okay.
Because
the conversation that I had.
And I still stick by what I said.
Prior to this thing. For me, I believe it's a matter of trust. And my father...
No, I think that is no. I think it's
I'll tell you what I think. For me, once a parent... I don't know movie.
Okay.
But once a parent comes with a pack of condoms and leaves them on top of your bed, in a way, in her mind, she's already acknowledging that my son, I know why I have. Just be safe. That's not a talk.
Or maybe that's
apart from that, you need, and we need to be honest with each other. And I think that's, as I'm sitting here thinking about what my father was going through when he actually gave me a packet of condoms without even talking about it. I think he reached the point where he's like, there are certain things in this boy's life that I cannot control, cannot influence.
He'll have to discover for himself.
He'll have to find a way for himself, but I just hope that he finds it in a respectable manner. Some parents aren't programmed to just talk about it. But
or
for
didn't
me,
grow up in an environment that allowed them to be that type of parent. Remember, your parent is someone's child as well.
right.
Right, and every child is different.
Right. Now,
So the parent can't have one.
now, here's where it gets pretty interesting, and I'm going to start talking about my household.
Ah, oui.
Okay.
My father reached a point where he was like, when was it? I think it was when I first started dating, or when he first saw me with a girl. He was like, okay. keep going.
And it's usually weird when like our popses actually see us with girls for the first time, you know. Like there's that awkwardness.
Yeah.
There's that awkwardness.
Yeah, but now my father was actually at a point where he was like, he's starting to see girls. Okay, I see it now. So, what's the best way to tackle this thing? Let me try and raise this kid as responsible as I can, so that whatever decision it is that you make, you know that you think long term. I was thinking long term. I was a child that was basically programmed to think. Should I say programmed? Because of a child, when you're a child, you think you become programmed before you eventually are given the opportunity to make decisions. I was practically programmed to think long term, and ultimately resulting.
That way, I think we are like, that's why Replome so fella.
To think long term.
Yeah,
now you know us as kids here.
Exactly.
I'm going to be honest with everyone.
Exactly.
You know us as kids here. But it goes back to the point that she was making, which is, even though most of our peers were actually engaging in these activities,
We
made the choice of not engaging in these activities all on our own.
Even being there, right? There's me. You know, okay, no, not like I'm bragging or anything like that. There is a me in a family filled with, you know, a lot of kids. And kids will see a me, right? And they will see a different version of me that has kids that is on alcohol and after seeing that, they still wouldn't, there are some people who still wouldn't opt for that. They would still go make the mistakes that they've seen happen in the past. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. A parent can only do so much until you are willing to take it, put in the work. Exactly.
That's the point that I was actually saying in the midst of all that. But I personally feel as though, and I want us to focus a bit more on. I understand that teenage pregnancy, the biggest factor is parents and how you're raised in a domestic setting and all these things. I want you to hear, okay.
No,
you'll explain.
Stop abusing parents. Stop.
Now, you know one thing about parents
but
that I understand, and it's one thing. Our parents are also recovering from their own generational trauma, so we can't put all the pressure on them to do.
And you have to open the dialogue. You have to start the dialogue.
Life itself, like it's a classroom for me. That's how I consider it.
I want, okay, the reason why I'm directing this specifically to parents, I don't know, I think my parents played a very, very major role in me becoming who I am, but it dwells more specifically on, you ain't gonna do that shit. Not while I'm still alive and not whilst you're still living under my roof. To a point where whenever you do make these choices, you start thinking about repercussions. I want you to hear me out. To a guy who actually has a child with someone else and is still living with their parents, it's a very, very uncomfortable position to be in.
You know, and as a guy, one thing I know, automatically once you have a kid, the focus automatically shifts from you. It goes to the child, even like your parents, regardless of whether you're unemployed or what, they don't care. They'll tell you like, dude, right now we're providing for your kid. You'll have to see for yourself.
And you can't blame the parents for doing that, because if they said we're gonna cater to you and leave your child alone, there would still be a problem. And if they cater to the child and not you, there still be a problem. So what's the solution? Stop having babies under your parents' roof.
But here's the
that one people are gonna come for you. I'm telling you right now.
Here's one thing.
Stop trying to be parents in other people's houses.
Here's one thing that I'm saying. Parents also play a key role in terms of teenage pregnancy. Supposedly, let's say a situation was completely beyond the control of anyone, parents and all, and everybody accepts the fact that you're about to have a child and so on and so forth. Shortly after teenage pregnancy comes the responsibility to actually raise that child. Am I correct? now we go back to this thing of, men these days that don't raise their child or do not pay maintenance, they're classified as deadbeats or douchebags and so on and so forth. Who teaches responsibility to a person 80 to 90% of the time, from the moment they grow up to the moment they become that reproductive at that stage?
Oh, hell no.
But,
what are you trying to say?
No, I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question.
Okay, apparently.
Let me answer that, Ane, with this, Ane. There's this thing.
You
They
better not say what I think you want to say.
Our elders, when growing up, they used to say it takes a village to raise a
Because
kid.
it does.
Yeah, because it does.
It does.
Just as much as we blame our parents for certain things.
Are we still living in a village now? Let's be honest.
Nah,
We live in.
changed.
We talk, guys.
This generation changed things. Our generation changed
practical-
the dynamics of things.
No!
On a more realistic side. Wait. Okay, I want.
That's why teenage pregnancy is normal. Us without kids, because I'm 26 without kids, they'll tell me that I'm infertile. And it's a choice. It's a choice that I made. No, I will not have kids until I'm at a point that I'm financially stable to provide for them. Unlike them right now, they are out there getting pregnant at a young age.
Yeah.
And then they come back, they start crying like, hey, Gunjan.
Yeah.
This person, when they were doing the deed, they knew the risks.
And I want to jump in on this, né? Right now, I don't know whether it existed back then, but right now, apparently, a woman is now given a certain timeline to have kids. According to the scientific community. She's given a certain timeline to have kids.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have kids at this age to this age, and any age beyond that particular age, the risks of that child being healthy or you still being alive after giving birth are extremely high. Now, who does that put pressure on? Even though you just finished school and you're now at adolescent stage and so on and so forth, even though you haven't established yourself, you still are going to rely on the government's resources to actually look after your child, right? So the question becomes, at what point do we start acknowledging that certain things that are imposed on us all in the name of science are actually corrupting our entire morality of us as human beings?
Those are facts.
I've had that type of conversation and backlash when I was asked when I want to have kids, and I said I'll start having kids at the age of 35.
The social media.
I said 35, and everyone looked at me like I'm crazy.
They
what?
looked at you and all.
Yeah, I'm like, first of all, I don't afford a
Shopping
child
all,
right now.
yes.
I can't afford it, and I sure as hell am not applying for grants.
Exactly.
I'm not doing that, and that's a problem for
Like,
a lot of people.
you can already tell because we have friends who have kids.
Yeah.
We can already see
Yeah.
what the struggles that come with
Yeah,
having a kid that's
Exactly.
not prepared, because these are not like plain kids.
Exactly.
You know, this also earlier on was looking at me somehow, because Mufenyi said these are accidental kids, and I was like, these kids are mistake kids. Even though they are kids, they are children.
These are kids.
But they were not planned.
They were, just say unplanned. Don't say mistake.
Yeah.
To me.
Accidental. It's still the
also
same.
mean.
Because this person was just having sex out of
I don't even
curiosity.
know if I'm not accidental. Do you know?
I would say.
Do you?
I'm not accidental.
I know. Your parents will actually tell you that you came by accident.
Exactly, so we can't give all the
We
kids
live in a
that.
society that
I know
is
I
currently
was,
happening. And it's happening with these teenage mothers usually.
Yeah.
You know, this teenage, especially like in the 70s, 80s, you know, you'll hear like the parent being like, you were never planned.
Yeah.
You delayed my life. You know, we actually have such situations where like the parent actually hates a child.
It's like, yeah.
Okay, can I be an arsehole right now? I'm literally going to be an ass right now. Supposedly, hypothetically, I'm just going to be it. As much as you like it.
Okay.
I'm just going to be an ass right now.
Yeah.
Supposedly, all these things of social grants were removed. And condoms were removed.
I think that's part of the reason why people still vote for the ANC.
Yeah.
Social grants were removed and condoms were removed, and the entire subject of LO was removed from the curriculum of schools in general. And they said, let's see for the next 10 years what's going to happen to these people who are born at a certain age to a certain age, or who started school at a certain age to a certain age. How many kids would we have? Would you still? Because I came to realize that the environment and
Less.
setting of the environment that is given unto people determines how people flourish or how they fall. Now, these social grants, if they were, I'm going to be honest with you, if even if grants were not removed but converted into
Groceries,
packages
Pampers,
and all these things, even though you have a SASA card, you just go to
swipe
ShopRite
food.
and then you swipe food, and then just a packet of groceries comes all in a single packet and you're given. What are the odds that you're actually going to another child? Because you're not going to use that child's money to go and drink. And I came to realize that 80 to 90% of the parents that current or
it will also force it will also help addressing the issue of unemployment. I won't lie. Because automatically you will be forced to level up. For instance, sometimes, when I'm sitting, I'm like, okay, I don't have a kid right now and my life is good. Like, I don't have a lot of responsibilities. Like the other day I was telling them, and I'm like, sometimes I feel like maybe the only thing missing in my life is a kid at the moment. If I just get a kid, maybe I might just level up. I might be forced to level up like my grinding. Sometimes that's the case,
yeah, okay, I understand. Some people are now. But I guess
we are not bringing a child into this world to test if you will grind more. Imagine.
I know, okay, I'm hustling. But I feel like, okay, I'm hustling, I'm doing everything. But for now, it's more like, okay, it's for me.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't wanna. I can't buy and did it. I just don't wanna. When I'm let me just say, okay, I'm hustling right now.
Yeah.
I'm only focusing on me.
Yeah.
So I have this target. Okay, let me just say for a year, I wanna hit maybe 30K.
Okay.
That's my target
Right.
as an individual.
Yeah.
So in a way, what I'm trying to say, I'm like, if there was a kid, maybe instead of that 30, I will be like 60. You get where I'm going at?
Or not.
Because I understand where she's coming from. The probability that you might be motivated or you might be demoralized of 50.
Because what if the mother of that child drains you?
Because you need
the mother
at the same time. I don't know, but for me, growing up,
that's why
I came to ask this.
I don't want to be a baby dad.
I came to ask this one particular question, which is, even if I decided to have a child, do I trust this woman who's actually going to carry my child to raise my child well? We need to start asking ourselves that particular question, because 80 to 90% of the time, kids are used in battles between two grown-ass people.
Especially this generation.
Kids are used as a pawn between two grown-ass people.
Give me a scenario. Why would I baby mama?
I'll tell you right now for a guy. Okay, just as much as most baby daddies are assholes out there, there's legit baby daddies who are being denied access while they want to provide for their child. And it's only because of the parent and the mother, they are no longer dating, usually. And because the mother has a problem of the guy moving on, now it's more like, I'm going to create problems. You won't get access to your child. Sometimes it's because maybe the guy is poor, the mother is dating someone with. And then they're like, we are denying you like access to your child. Do you remember, what's this movie, Losing Lerato, man?
I never watched that.
Even now, in the midst of everything, there are still, and we have to be honest with this, guys, there are still those programs and moments where whenever these teenage pregnancy conversations are talked about in all these things, they're still not addressing the issue of what is happening. It goes back to the last episode that we had of
bullying, cyberbullying
and all that. There's a part where we started talking about, do we have people that deal with social welfare within schools?
Exactly.
Because everybody, I personally believe everybody in this room at some point wrote an exam with someone within the exam venue or the exam hall pregnant.
No,
victims.
It's a struggle.
You understand?
I think 2 times.
It's a battle.
Was it 3 times?
It's
because after matric, I found out someone was actually pregnant, like around matric too. I don't want to mention names. It's like
what I mean.
So I was like,
oh my god.
But I also feel like, Lorona Majida, we also have like a role to play in this thing, a part to play. Obviously. Like, I feel like Rona Majid, and it will be like a shame if the episode ended without me saying this.
Yeah.
We niggas are assholes in most
Yeah,
cases.
Yeah.
Because we prey on small kids.
He is the devil.
I'm gonna make my point. I'm gonna make.
Let me finish my point, and
okay.
you'll get where I'm
He's
going.
the devil's advocate.
Majority of niggas
Yeah.
right now, the only reason 2Ks like they have like such an active sex life, it's because of us 90s gents. You know, we were quick to expose them to these things because we preyed on them while they were still hitting puberty. Was 16. My homie, I won't lie. I won't lie.
Even older guys.
I won't lie. That's where it begins.
Outside of a high school, picking up
a 30-year-old married to someone will go prey on a high school kid.
And
the
you
kid
cannot
falls
say
pregnant.
it's the child's fault.
Almost pregnant.
Keyword pray. Okay, we're not saying consensual. We said pray. Where it is intentional, you intentionally use.
And then look what I say. You know, it I want like us niggas. That's something.
Born. Guys, let's be realistic.
You saying it doesn't happen?
Can we be realistic about it?
Okay.
I'm not saying it's not happening.
All right.
Akani, the moment you hold a girl by the hand and you walk into them in a bedroom, who holds the cards at that particular point in time? You or the person who's supposed to open their
Don't
legs?
forget Lady Denny.
Who's holding the cards? No, guys, Born.
Okay,
wait. Who's holding the... Let me finish.
Let me ask you. If an uncle takes their little niece and walks into a bedroom...
That's completely Born. That's completely different. Born. I want you to hear me out, guys. We are not talking about that level of grown-ass man. We're not talking about uncles. We're talking about an environment where kids are picked up by, should I say, people around the ages of 30 or something like that, right?
Yes.
That means at that particular point in time, that child is already taught some elements of responsibility.
Wow.
Take note, teenage pregnancy comes from the form of, I know that I can do this, but should I do it?
I get what you say, but here's the thing about that. As a grown-up person, you already know how to convince. Like, let's say, example, how share. So simple.
Wait.
Yeah, coercing.
So, right.
Foreplay.
Let's mention the word coercing.
Yeah. Because that's what happens.
Right. Okay.
And then what happens? They introduce them to this sex, like this high sex lifestyle.
Let me make this clear.
Oh my God.
It doesn't matter at this point in time, because take note, we're in the same church. In church, there's a time where I think most churches, in a general perspective, they classify that a child around the age of 12 already is learning certain elements of responsibility. And at the age of 16, you should be educated in certain elements of responsibility.
You see, this thing goes
now,
after 12 is lunch.
Here's the part where it gets funny. So, if a man is going to be classified as someone who actually coerced a child to go and have sex with them, if a child makes a decision to go and drink alcohol, is it still in the same vicinity, or are you going to blame peer pressure for that?
No. Okay, wow. First of all, that is very sick.
What do you mean it's very sick?
No, that's very sick what you're saying. Let me explain. When an adult convinces a teenager to have sex...
At what point is teenager? The age,
what? Excuse me?
Age.
Do you not know what
age.
a teenager
No.
is?
Let's educate people out there. Age. There's a point that I'm going to drive. Age.
What do you mean age? A teenager when you are 19, when you're 18, 17, 16, 15, 14.
14.
That is a teenager.
Okay, fine. Then continue. I'll drive my point home. Continue.
Okay, fine. If a high schooler...
I'll drive my point home.
Okay, drive it home, sir. It's fine. We're not going with you. But point I'm trying to make is, if a 30-year-old takes a 16-year-old and goes into the bedroom with a 16-year-old, the fact that you even get any sexual pleasure from that is sick.
Okay.
It is disgusting.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a thing.
Okay.
And if that implements or kind of endorses, or let's just say that teenager starts to have, let's just say they fall pregnant.
Right.
Then what? How is that?
Usually they run away. That's the thing I'm trying to address, to show you how usually. I'll go right now. I'm 26 years old.
Right.
I'll go and date like maybe a 16-year-old.
I am so upset at the fact that you said what you
After
said.
dating that 16-year-old, let's say maybe can I have a girlfriend. Like I already have a girlfriend that's at the same age group with me, my dating rate,
Right.
and then I just go and start dating this high school kid, this high school kid falls pregnant. Ke tlo ja fatshe kana. Go chala no mo fake. I'm gonna be this side because this chick, Len, same level. She's grinding, she's doing whatever, she has stable life.
Right.
That one is still at school. Already considered by expense.
Okay.
Because you don't have a damage.
And a
Let me
30-year-old
be an asshole again.
A 30-year-old is not introducing a
For the first time, me and Mofenyu are actually disagreeing on something.
Let me be an asshole again, ne? Let me be an asshole again. At 16, where was your headspace at?
Anna bra, I was a trapster. 16 years I was doing things people wouldn't imagine doing.
now, at 16, even though you were doing things that people were not imagining that you were doing, you still knew repercussions
You know
of
what?
certain acts. Did you not? Let's be honest, guys. Did you
It's
not?
because of
First of all, when I was 16,
the environment around me. You know, like, just as much as like our parents don't have those convos, honey. But as soon as Babona maybe it's like a go front opposite, pregnant, dating a mageza or something. When they reprimand, that's when they will be having talks with you like, automatically
I am coming back to this thing. Neither of us have kids here, right? At 16, where was your headspace at? The point that I'm trying to make. Now, even though your headspace was at a point of sex, you knew that engaging in certain elements, that even though you were constantly reprimanded of, that there were repercussions that came after. I was taught back then in school that you need to be careful about certain things that you guys are doing physically. And this is coming from life orientation as much as we were criticizing it. Hear me out. There's a part where the teacher back in high school, I think I said it in a previous episode or last season, he held 2 papers of both a girl and a boy. And then he said, kissing, obviously you guys are going to do that and something like that. The moment you guys start engaging in sex, then he started using glue. Then he rubbed glue on both these papers and then he put them together. And then he let the glue dry. And then the moment you guys start separating, there are certain elements of you that remain within that particular person, and there are certain elements of her that remain within you. And at the end of the day, we start talking and having problems about things like teenage pregnancy and so on and so forth. We need to start acknowledging the fact, guys, that right now we live in a South Africa where 12-year-olds are currently vaccinating, right? That means 12-year-olds are already educated on certain elements with regards to them taking vaccines.
That's not the point.
You know, no, it is the point.
No, what
You're
you
making,
said.
no, listen to what I'm saying.
Let
the
me
point
remind
that
you
I'm,
what you said, so
okay,
maybe you can.
okay.
You said if a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old walked into a bedroom,
Right.
who would be responsible? Who has to open
Exactly.
their legs? That's what
Right,
you said.
that's what I said.
You're saying
Influence.
16-year-olds.
Now, are you saying that in the midst of certain things that were around peer pressure, even though you were at the age of 30 or something like that, I remember one time someone actually trying to recruit me to engage into criminal activities. I was 13 and I said no. If a child at my age, around 13, when this grown-ass man was around 19, 20 or 21, actually requested, how is it different, these are when decisions come with responsibilities?
Let me explain. Stop yelling. Stop
How
yelling.
is it coming with
Let me
responsibilities?
explain.
Okay, explain.
Let me explain. There's a
Okay,
difference
guys.
between someone coming and saying, yo, do you want to join a gang? Let's go. Let's do
And
it.
influencing
As
you.
opposed to, no,
Decisions,
listen. No,
guys.
listen, no, wait.
Okay.
As opposed to someone seeing you, oh, Mofeng is a nerd. He's always by himself. He comes to you, he throws the ball at you. He walks with
Mofeng, you said something about manipulation. Manipulation is a skill. It's an art.
Now,
I can get you to do something without even realizing that it's not actually your choice that you are doing that.
and the responsibility thereof remains with who? Let's say I manipulated you.
It's the older guy.
The older guy.
The adult is always going to be
you're
more
the victim.
responsible.
Because the adult knows better.
Right, okay. Now
The adult knows better.
Okay, fine.
Let's this thing
God.
should not be happening.
Right. Okay,
You see.
supposedly then, we are not drawing in adults. Peers.
Yeah.
There are peers, there are kids out there that have children
It lets
with
become
children.
No, peers, it's fine. That's not what we're asking.
Okay,
I'm
guys.
saying it's fine. I'm saying it's fine.
Let's just take a quick break.
Okay,
Nje,
okay.
We'll be back after this short break.
Okay.
Apart from that, please don't forget to click that subscribe button. Say things are getting heated up here, so maybe let's just go and come down. Rabo, apart from the love affair session, hey, Rahu started 14th of Feb, you know. Don't forget that we at Chief Mohale. The tickets for the main course meal are still going at 200. You can get them at Pick and Pay and Boxer supermarkets. They're worldwide, man. And also at BP garages. Apart from that, we'll be back after the short break. Hey, it's an interesting one, this one. And we are back, guys, from our short break, hey. And we are still on the topic of teenage pregnancy. As you saw before we went to the short break, that, hey, emotions were high here, you know, like, because of what I said about men, like, actually preying on that, but we'll get back to that one, you know. But apart from that, please don't forget to click on the subscribe button, hey, and follow button, and also hit the like button there. And as Mofenyi said earlier on, that you leaving a comment actually helps us to grow and also lets us know how we can actually improve. Apart from that, don't forget that on the 14th of February 2022, we are going to be at Kagiso Chief Mohale Hall hosting the Love Affair sessions for Valentine, hey. And the main activities actually include, what's this? A 3-main course meal serving, whereby we're going to be having starters, the main dish and dessert, and then we're going to wrap up the evening with a ball dance. You should pull through. The menus are already available on our social media platforms. We're going to be serving some fancy stuff ekasi. So come and experience love the Kasi way, hey, together with the real talkers out there. Apart from that, let's dive in deep. Mr. Muela and you know, like, that's the thing. This convo actually continued even after we went off air. So, like,
I'm surprised your home is still intact. I'm surprised your home is still intact.
I'm surprised I'm sitting here.
But apart from that, this is gonna be more like of our wrap up. But as we are aware that we were still talking about this thing of older men actually taking advantage. That's where the argument is at the moment.
Right, and then prior to us taking an ad break, I started asking the question about what is it then classified when both people are of the same age in the same environment.
I said, and then I think we were off when I answered this question.
We were
I
all
was
off
like,
when we started
for
talking
teenagers, it's no longer a matter of choice or what. It's just two teenagers inside a room, both curious to know what's happening.
They're trying to find out what their body parts do because...
For me, Mufin, that's how I feel.
was on that...
yeah, because
reproductive
initially
and
they
stuff.
said sex happens with like a woman.
Why are you afraid to say sex?
Yeah, I'm not.
You know it is
Sex is sex, guys.
No, it's how he's morally.
Yeah, I wanted to say
So-
that's a part of why the conversation of parents not being able to...
Yeah.
It makes you feel guilty to say
Exactly,
it.
because Nersha Pelwadilo, so
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like, you know, right now, like, you know,
And
we throw
school
these terms
tables.
like dicks, pussy, like, all over, like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But back then, these things were not allowed. It was
School
vulgar
dates, do
language.
you remember the school dates? You find them written.
Yeah.
Gotta like it's something major. And
You know,
It was an accomplishment.
yeah,
in-
like now you look at it and you just
in
like...
bathrooms and all.
yeah.
that.
So, like the point that I was actually trying to make, Mufin, let me just clarify this for, like, maybe even the real talkers who might have misinterpreted it. When I said, like, men are actually part of the problem, we as men, older men, because I'm a 26-year-old, and then I go and date, like, a high school kid, automatically. Whether that high school kid is already informed about these things, the risks, but I still have more influence in influencing that person to actually do the deed with me.
Okay.
I can coerce her through gifts, whatever. Like
Words,
Arshabella, the
words.
sugar daddy culture during our high school days, how it used to happen. You know, there were those girls we knew who were, yeah.
But the motive was behind. If the sugar daddy culture was still there during that time, the motive was what?
Whose motive?
the motive was what? Remember, the sugar daddy concept was back then the concept of
the
a
motive
girl
behind that,
in-
it was because girls love nice things. Akay, also our parents actually taught most women that indoda must be able to take care of you. These
can I weigh
things.
in as a female? Right, okay. I will say that when you are in passing, the same way that men would like us to pay attention to, why they do things and why they act the way that they do, I think that you could take the same thing and apply it to women and don't really make us such, vindictive people. I will explain. As a woman, when I first dated the guy that I dated, I think I was in grade 11.
Yeah.
I didn't date him because I liked him or because we had anything in common. I dated him because he called me beautiful. He was the first guy to say I'm beautiful. After years of feeling invincible and feeling like I wasn't good enough. And so that could be part of the reason why someone acts the way that they do. The same reason why a teenage girl would date a sugar daddy, maybe because mama ko haya sebenzi, right? And sometimes mothers can tell I never. Even the child herself is put in a situation where she feels like that is all she can do. In order for her to take care of her mom, that's what she has to do. Parents do that. They say things like that to their daughters.
So
right?
what's the way forward, guys? Because I feel like we've been talking about there's
personally,
contributing factors and everything. But we need solutions for these things. And like I said, this is more like the rebel idea. So
I suggest two things. And it's going to go back to what we talked about in the previous episode. Number one, our schools need to be resourced with proper psychological prowess. By proper psychological prowess, I'm referring to people that deal with domestic and psychological issues, not just in a domestic standpoint, but in a social standpoint. And the second thing that we need to do is we need to see, or I wish the government had a way of tracking the monies that they pay for grants. Because oftentimes I tend to encounter women who, even though they had kids at a very young age, or even though some of them have kids at a very older, at a later stage, they use the government's resources for self-pleasure. We're referring to things like engaging in alcohol, going to taverns, and all these things, while a kid is starving. I'll explain one season, one encounter that I had where a child rocked up with their sibling in a tavern, pulled out the money, and then they told the mother. They were looking for the mother in the tavern, but they couldn't find the mother, but the mother was in the tavern. And then they went, and one of the neighbors actually encountered that child, and then they were like, "What's up? I'm looking for my mom, I'm hungry." And I think we're looking for our mother.
because when you say this thing,
So-
it's just right in front of you.
Right, so then she's like, "Okay, come with me, I'll give you guys food." And then those kids were fed, and then that neighbor went into the tavern, found the mother of the kids, and then she told the mother, "Your kids came here, and they're saying that they were hungry." The first thing that that particular woman did, she started throwing punches and slaps towards the child, because that was classified as an embarrassing moment.
And it's not.
Now, in the midst of something like that, if you were to remove moments like grant or substitute them for something that could be more, should I say,
Food.
utilized, like food and food hampers and all these things, then we would, even anyone, even at our age, will start thinking twice about making kids. I'm not saying that making kids is always a choice. Sometimes it comes unexpectedly, as Tisa doesn't want to use the word accident or something like that. So, babies. When babies come unannounced, unannounced.
So, Miss T,
Personally, I feel like it is so important I always say we need to go back because there's so much treasure, from my grandparents and go back to the generation that is afraid of God, that understands the religion that you are a part of. I think because when I made the decision to, abstain and it was really because in the Bible God said sex before marriage is a sin. And I took that and I put it into my heart and that's enough to not do that. So I think that if we really identify ourselves as individuals and identify what matters to us as people as opposed to, society being accepted or, instead of trying to normalize so much, let's really have those hard conversations and be honest with ourselves as far as how much we've lost with tradition, with religion. And I think that we can really try a different approach with our parents as well. And really open space for being, unaccepted in society. Be uncool. It's cool to be uncool and not be accepted by many people. But as long as that is fine for you, then let that be that way. But personally, because I had this conversation with my mom before coming here, because I was just prepping and telling I don't know if I can add value to this conversation because I haven't experienced it. But she did say for her understanding is that akarna now. You understand? Akarna now, you can't tell a child, listen, don't stand komonyaka. Why? There's no our you understand what I mean?
I think it all goes back to the point that we always make, and that is we are normalizing a hell a lot of stuff that should actually stay the same. Because I actually feel like the only solution to this thing is actually starting to make sex or influencing sex to become a second act again. Because back then this thing, it was so sacred that even when you spoke about it, your elders were like, "Aye, told." And then you reach a certain age. That's why there were this thing so fanana kukopa. I don't know, gospelin libitsang, women initiation, men initiation, such vibes where your uncle will just sit you down at a certain point. Okay, now you need a wife. You need kids. Unlike what's happening right now, I feel also our education system should do away with this thing they're trying to introduce of porn being a norm in schools. Those things are sparking curiosity. As we speak, our social media platforms are more what's this? Porn platforms. One of the reasons we have a generation of sexual active kids. I won't lie, I'm being for real. But we'll actually cover a lot of this stuffs on the next episode because it's gonna be part 2 of this. Since we don't have kids, we'll actually be bringing through people who actually went through these things. We'll actually try finding a woman and a boy who actually did this thing. So if you're a real talker out there and you actually want to appear on the show and you have actually experienced these things, just hit us up on our social media platforms via DMs and everything, Jay. And then we'll actually arrange to make it happen because we're going to record it this upcoming week. So it's going to drop after this episode. But apart from that, it seems like we have run out of time for this episode. So please don't forget to click that subscribe button as we are still on the path of seeking practical solutions. And you can also go check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/realtalkwithak, the People's Podcast. That's where you can join the actual community of the Real Talkers community, and you'll actually get exclusive benefits that are actually meant for you, even behind the scenes clips. Apart from that, it's a wrap from us. I don't know if my guests still have anything to say, but for me, in general,
old men can prey on teenagers.
Teenagers have a choice as well.
It's a wrap, guys.
No, but honestly, adults, guys. Adults.
Choices.